Born on April 9, 1835, in Brussels, Belgium, Leopold II was the second king of the Belgians, the son of King Leopold I and Queen Louise Marie of Orleans. From a young age, Leopold was raised with an intense awareness of royal duty and international ambition. Intelligent and calculating, he was educated in languages, history, and military affairs, developing a fascination with colonial empires. Unlike many monarchs who inherited powerful domains, Leopold II ruled over a small European kingdom and believed that Belgium's future prestige depended on overseas expansion. Early in his reign, which began in 1865 after the death of his father, he began searching for a colonial venture that would elevate Belgium's global status. Obsessed with acquiring territory, Leopold was blocked repeatedly in attempts to gain colonies in Asia and the Americas. His moment came during the age of African exploration, when European powers scrambled to claim vast tracts of the African continent. Using a cunning mix of diplomacy, personal networks, and propaganda cloaked in humanitarian rhetoric, Leopold established the International African Association in 1876 under the guise of scientific exploration and philanthropy. This association would become the cover for what was essentially his private imperial project. He hired the Welsh-American explorer Henry Morton Stanley, famous for his exploration of Central Africa and his encounter with Dr. Livingstone, to establish treaties with local chiefs in the Congo Basin, documents most could not read and which were often signed under duress or deception. At the 1884–85 Berlin Conference, where European nations divided Africa among themselves with little regard for indigenous peoples, Leopold succeeded in convincing the other colonial powers to recognize his personal claim to the Congo Free State, a vast territory over 75 times the size of Belgium. Thus began one of the most brutal colonial regimes in history. From 1885 until 1908, Leopold ruled the Congo Free State not as King of Belgium, but as an individual sovereign. Though he never set foot in the Congo, he oversaw its administration with ruthless efficiency. His regime was built on the forced extraction of rubber and ivory, using a system of quotas enforced by the force publique, a private colonial army comprised of Belgian officers and African conscripts. Villages that failed to meet their rubber quotas were subjected to horrific punishments. Men were killed, women held hostage, and children mutilated. The most notorious punishment was the severing of hands, ostensibly to prove bullets were not wasted. While Leopold justified his rule with claims of bringing Christianity, civilization, and commerce to Africa, the reality was an economy of terror fueled by greed. The profits flowed to Leopold personally, funding the construction of opulent buildings in Belgium, including royal palaces and monuments, and transforming Brussels into a capital of imperial grandeur. The toll in the Congo, however, was catastrophic. Historians estimate that between 10 and 15 million Congolese perished due to murder, starvation, exhaustion, and disease under Leopold's rule. The atrocities were initially hidden, but growing numbers of missionaries, journalists, and whistleblowers began exposing the truth. Chief among them was Edmund Dean Morel, a British shipping clerk who noticed that ships returning from the Congo were laden with rubber and ivory but carried only guns and chains on their outbound journeys. With the support of African-American missionary George Washington Williams and British diplomat Roger Casement, Morel launched a massive international campaign, the Congo Reform Association, raising global outrage against Leopold's regime. Photographs and testimonies of mutilated Congolese reached the public, shattering the myth of the benevolent king. Leopold responded with an aggressive public relations campaign, denying abuses and accusing critics of lying. He commissioned works defending his actions and dismissed the growing body of evidence. However, under mounting international and domestic pressure, the Belgian parliament forced Leopold to cede control of the Congo Free State to the Belgian government in 1908. While abuses continued under official colonial rule, the worst excesses of Leopold's personal dominion came to an end. Leopold retained much of the personal wealth he had extracted from the Congo, though his reputation was irreparably damaged. In his final years, he grew increasingly reclusive and bitter, angered that his imperial ambitions were not universally praised. He destroyed many of his personal papers and records related to the Congo, trying to bury the evidence of his crimes. On December 17, 1909, Leopold II died at Laeken Palace. When news of his death reached the streets of Brussels, crowds reportedly jeered as his funeral procession passed. Though once hailed in Belgium as a visionary monarch who brought wealth and prestige to his country, Leopold's legacy is now overshadowed by the unspeakable suffering inflicted upon the Congolese people during his rule. Today, historians recognize his reign over the Congo as one of the darkest chapters in the history of European imperialism. Statues of Leopold II, once symbols of national pride, have been defaced or removed in the wake of renewed reckoning with colonial atrocities. The legacy of his brutal exploitation lives on not only in the historical record, but in the scars left on generations of Congolese. Leopold II stands as a chilling reminder that the pursuit of power, cloaked in the rhetoric of civilization, can descend into barbarity when unchecked by conscience or accountability. His story is not only about a king and an empire, it is about the human cost of imperial ambition.